Residents of a small neighborhood in Daegu are protesting a mosque being built in their community. That's all coming up right now. What's up, guys? Fooch from Fooch TV here. This story takes place in a small neighborhood of Daehyundong in one of the most conservative cities in South Korea, both politically and religiously, Daegu. The conflict started when a piece of real estate classified as a detached single-family home was recategorized to a religious assembly hall, and construction began in December of 2020, last year. Residents started protesting against the construction when they found out it was going to be a mosque, and construction was suspended on February 16th due to an order from the Daegu office, which is the local provincial office. On July 5th of this year, 140 days after the construction was suspended, the owner, Milan Muaz Razak from Pakistan, sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, Mr. Razak from Pakistan filed a lawsuit to reverse the suspension, which was won on July 19th. However, the construction still has not started because residents are taking action by blocking access to the construction site. So since 2015, Muslims have been gathering in a house to worship in the neighborhood. Most of, if not all, the Muslims are studying or have family members studying at Gyeongbuk University, according to Mr. Razak. The location is in close proximity to the School of Engineering, which is why a lot of Muslims are in the area. I guess a lot of Muslims are studying engineering and computer science at that university in Daegu. According to Mr. Razak, 25 years old, the university's Muslim population is mostly from Pakistan and Uzbekistan. After graduating, according to him, they go home and new students come, totaling about 150 students per semester. So what exactly is going on here now? Mr. Razak is correct in the sense that he does have a permit from the local government to build the two-story house to be used as a mosque. He says that he and the rest of the Muslim congregation are victims of Islamophobia and they just want to peacefully coexist with the local community. Another student, Mr. Muhammad Adil, has said, "I told my family that Korea is a very beautiful and peaceful country, but my wife and son came here to see all this. Banners against the construction of mosque hung from house to house, cars blocking the access road to construction sites, and people shouting and protesting in front of their homes in the morning. My family was very shocked. I don't know how to explain the situation." Now, on the other side of the story, a Korean task force was put together in February of this year to stop the construction of the two-story house that was going to be used as a mosque. The vice chairman claims the residents of the community are the victim. She says at first it was said that the single-story house would be renovated, not turned into a two-story mosque. Additionally, there are concerns that the area, already too crowded and congested, will attract more people and become more noisy and crowded. The construction site is surrounded by 10 different homes at the moment. The reason why the residents are blocking the construction is because they felt the district office reduced them to a third party in this when they feel like they should be the ones to make the decision. The only entrance to the alley in which cars can enter is where residents who oppose the construction park their cars and turn around and stand guard. People are also against it because of the noise of the frequent prayer throughout the day. So apparently there is only one alleyway or one small street that can access the construction site, and that site is being, or that alley I should say, is being blocked by the residents who don't want this being built, which is why construction, although is currently permitted, has not started yet. Residents argued that smell and noise were the problem at the beginning of the protest movement, not the smell of the Muslims, but the smell of the food that they cook apparently, but recently criticized that it is difficult for Muslims to coexist with residents. The former chairman of the committee, unsure if it's male or female, just going by their surname Kim, who is someone in their 50s, said, "To be honest, we are not blocking the construction of the mosque because of the smell of food or noise." Kim explained their fears by saying, "How do you come to accept Islam in Europe? To be honest, it's scary." They were referring to the terrorist attacks that have rocked Europe for the past 2 decades. It should be noted that Korean human rights groups and progressive intellectuals advocate for the construction of a mosque in terms of religious freedom, cultural diversity, and human rights, while some residents, Christian groups, and groups known as conservatives oppose, saying our country will be Islamized. Now here's the rundown of the entire situation. Since 2015, the single-family house has been being used as a mosque for students at Gyeongbuk University, and they wanted to transform it into a 2-story house to provide more space for the existing congregation and to possibly expand it. So they have actually been using this house for, over 6 years now, and apparently there were no previous complaints related to the noise or the smells or anything. The Koreans go ahead and say, well, we did have issues with that, we just didn't want to file a formal complaint because we wanted to try to coexist. The government originally allowed the construction, and then they suspended it when the residents got pissed and were protesting, and then they reversed the suspension when Mr. Razak went to go sue. Despite Daegu being one of the most conservative cities in the entire country of South Korea, the city is already home to 7 mosques, the most any city in the country currently has. Most of the mosques are located in the industrial complex of the city, which would take about an hour to get there by bus. There are closer mosques, I believe, according to Google Maps, that are located about 35 minutes away if you take the bus. The reason why there's so many mosques is due to many Muslim workers who work in the factories located in the industrial complex area. The reason why students want to build a mosque right next to the university is because they have to, according to Islam, they have to pray 5 times a day, and going back and forth, whether the closer mosque that's currently 35 minutes away or closer to the mosque an hour away, going back and forth 5 times a day, that would require a lot of time, and they want to do it closer to the university. Now, Korean apartments are notorious for having poor sound insulation, and sound between neighbors is already a very serious and sensitive issue in the country, especially for these older buildings. And by older buildings, I mean, yes, buildings that were built 20 years ago. They are in absolute terrible conditions in terms of, the quality and definitely the soundproofing, so you can easily hear people that are on the street or your neighbors. Some residents have posted racist/Islamophobic signs and banners in the neighborhood, unfortunately, saying, have the Taliban come here, and calling Islam, the people who follow Islam, actual terrorists. Now, here is my takeaway for this event. Now, I've discussed and debated this issue quite a lot with people, both Koreans, conservative and liberal, and some foreigners, and I don't know what to say. This is actually a pretty tough situation, and I think it's ultimately one of noise and people who don't live in a neighborhood causing commotion, since the area is small. Now, if someone is being noisy within 50 meters of my apartment, I can easily hear them. I'm on the 3rd floor, and I've had sound issues myself with someone on the 1st floor producing music late at night. When I first moved to this apartment, they were producing music. I don't know how loud it actually was, but it did go all the way up to the 3rd floor, and I did hear it, and I did have an issue with it. In the building right next to mine, some crazy woman is trying to become a singer, or whatever. People have an obsession with singing here for some reason, but that's a different rant to go off on. I would hear her sing sometimes at midnight. That's in the building next to mine, inside her apartment, with her door closed and my window closed, and I was still able to hear her. When I lived at other places, there was a guy above me that sang, and I heard, I had some issues with that. Another place I lived, there was a guy above me who was listening to the TV loudly, so sound travels very easily in Korean apartments. Also, just in general, I don't like when people are in my neighborhood. I don't want to see a large group of people congregating in my neighborhood, especially if they don't live here. Right now, they're currently building new shops all throughout my neighborhood, which is going to attract a lot of idiots that are going to come here. They're going to be making noise. They're going to be taking their stupid little Instagram pictures out throughout the neighborhood, and that's going to piss me off. And that has nothing to do with the race. It could be Korean, Japanese, they could be from the Middle East, they could be white people. I don't give a crap. I just don't want them in my neighborhood. I want to live peacefully and quietly. Now, however, the fact that these people are Muslim is also an issue at play in this situation. The fact of the matter is, I'd imagine the residents would be pissed if any large group came to the neighborhood just like me. However, it's worse that 150 foreign men are coming to the neighborhood. Not only are they 150 men, 150 foreign men, they're also Islamic men, and I'm sure that is going to be an issue for the Koreans. They just like me and every other foreigner in this country, are guests in Korea. It's already nice enough that people are allowed to build mosques in Korea, considering that Islam is a rival religion to the current ones in Korea, being Christianity, Catholicism, and Buddhism, and the number of Korean Muslims is negligible. The number of Koreans that are Muslims is such a small number, so the fact that, you know, Muslims can come to Korea and build mosques, that should already be a great gift. But not only do the students want a mosque, which already exists, 7 of them in Daegu, the most that exist in a Korean city, despite Daegu being a very conservative Korean city, they want to build one right next to the university in this tiny Korean community, because their religion says they have to pray 5 times a day. So not only are they a guest in the country that want to practice their religion, they're being allowed to practice their religion in an existing mosque, and they're even allowed to build mosque in a more larger area that's not a tiny residential neighborhood. But because they have to be so close to the university, they want to disrupt this tiny community and build a mosque, attracting a whole bunch of people to their neighborhood. And people are going on and saying, you know, foreigners are talking about this. It's probably in the news. Oh, you know, Koreans are being racist. They don't want to build the mosque, this and that. Korea is not the US. It's not the UK. It's not a multicultural country. Korea is a country for Koreans. And if they don't want the mosque, guess what? They don't need it. Why do they need it? They don't want it. Korea is still a country for Korean people, and in Korea, they don't want it, and if they don't want it, they don't need it. There's nothing to prove. What do they have to prove? There's no Korean Muslims in there. In Korea, it's very negligible. Why do they need to have the mosque if they don't want it? What's the benefit? That they can go around and say, hey, look at us, you know, we have mosque, we're multicultural, we're globalists, let's, you know, come on over to Korea, give us your money, da, da, da. That's hardly a benefit. What are the cons? The cons is there's a potential threat, and I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, and it's a very, very tiny chance it's happening, but there could be a tiny threat that, you know, ISIS does come over, some sort of terrorist group does come over to Korea, and, you know, there might be terrorist attacks in Korea. Now, hold on there. I'm not saying that, you know, all Muslims are terrorists, or even a majority are. A very tiny fraction are. I understand that. But even that tiny fraction is a risk to Korea. And why do they need to take that risk? They don't. And it's not even like they're saying that, you know, Muslims aren't welcome. It's just in this tiny neighborhood, they don't want the extra people, and they don't want the noise. So why even fight about this? Even if they do win and they do build the mosque, now you pissed off everybody in the community. The property values are gonna drop. People are going to be leaving the neighborhood. A whole bunch of Muslims are going to come in because the mosque is right there. And we would have destroyed this tiny Korean community that's been there for how many years? God knows how many years. For no other reason but just to accommodate foreigners. And to me, that makes absolutely no sense at all. I think if we wanted to come to a sensible solution to this, yes, I realize that traveling over an hour just to pray is an inconvenience, even though it's their choice to be part of that religion. If we wanted to come to a reasonable solution, I think it would just be build a prayer room on the campus of the university. You know, Korean universities are suffering now, starting to suffer, and will continue to suffer, especially universities outside of Seoul, because of the declining birth rate, which means universities are going to have a difficult time getting students to enroll in their school, which means less tuition money, which means the schools are destined to fail. However, if they can attract foreigners to their school, they can still collect, you know, outside tuition money and stay afloat. So if the main benefit of the university is attracting students, and apparently this university is attracting a lot of Middle Eastern students, in order to appease them, then just build, you know, just turn a small room into a prayer room. Or I don't know about the size of the room, but just turn a room on the university into a prayer room and have them use that as the mosque. So, you know, they're not having a mosque and praying in the neighborhood. The residents will be happy. They're going to continue going to the school. So the school is going to be happy, and they'll have a place to pray that's near the classes. So the students are going to be happy. That's a very good solution, I think. I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about this situation? Should they build a mosque in the tiny neighborhood? And do you think the Koreans being racist, or do you think that the Koreans, you know, are fair and wanting to protect their neighborhood and the Muslims are asking for too much? Do you think my idea is good? I want to hear what you guys think. As always, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that. And if you think that I'm an Islamophobe, if that's a correct term, if you think that I'm racist or whatever, and you are just absolutely disgusted with my opinions and what I've had to say, go ahead and hit that thumbs down button. Nobody's stopping you. If you're a subscriber, unsubscribe. Thank you for subscribing until this point. But if this is where we say goodbye, that's where we say goodbye. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.